And now it's my great honor and pleasure to introduce the first of our featured readers, Dorsía Smith Silva. And Dorsia is the author of In Inheritance of Drowning by Kevin Carey, 2024, a finalist for the Whirling Prize and reviewed by Publishers Weekly. She is a poet, editor, and professor of English at the University of Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras, with work appearing in Literary Hub, Poets.org, Electric Lit, and the Los Angeles Review, among many others. A multi-time Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominee, Dorsia has been recognized as a KV Canem Poetry Prize semifinalist, an Obsidian Fellow, and a recipient of the Catherine Bakeless Nason Scholarship from Brad Lowe. She's also an editor at The Hopper and the creator of the Smith Silva Challenge, a reading initiative that highlights poetry by BIPOC authors. Beyond poetry, she has edited and co-edited several books and is dedicated to amplifying underrepresented voices in literature. And Dorsia, we have a little ritual here at Poetry Lit where I give a personal reflection on the work of the featured poet. And so here's my reflection on your work. There is a stunning poem by Pablo Neruda where the poet addresses convictions and conventions of what poets should speak about. It's called I'm Explaining a Few Things, and in it he explains why he doesn't write about lilacs and great volcanoes, because of the civil war in Spain and the death of his friends. Something similar is addressed in these poems. For instance, in the poem How a Poet Should Respond to a Hurricane. Is a poet allowed to see the beauty in a devastating natural disaster? Hurricane Maria is a recurring presence in these poems. The other is America, or rather the United States, and how it treats others. These poems ask the hard questions and point at the difficult contradictions that make up a country, a culture, a person. These are poems interested in investigating the flip side of things, where there is no justice for all who go missing, and where things are only allowed to exist in the clean space of the American way. And in doing that, these poems form a necessary counterspell. So, and the other tradition that we have is that I always ask a question before the reading, and I used to ask um, different questions each time, but since beginning of this year, I'm asking the same question to all poets because I've been writing an essay about how poetry can change the world, and I thought it would be interesting to ask all the poets who come on the show the same question and maybe see if I can write a 2.0 version of that same essay based on the answers I get. So, Dosia, I am aware that this is a difficult question, but I'm going to pose it to you anyway. So, how can poetry change the world?
Oh my goodness, what a question. Thank you so much for asking me. First, thank you, Mila, and thank you, Lydia, for having me. It is wonderful to be here. It's also wonderful to meet you, Nancy. I can't wait for your lovely reading. And thank you, Mila, for that introduction. Wow, it was really breathtaking. I was listening to it thinking, oh my goodness, we should be taking notes. I should have my students here listening to this so they can understand the power of poetry. When we think about the power of poetry, for me, it is definitely, especially for the aim of In Inheritance of Drowning, to have social transformation. And I mention that because we have inherited this world where there are so many multiple issues. And if we think about social transformation, if we think about the importance of poetry, that when we have these natural disasters, when we look at In Inheritance of Drowning, we'll be moved to act. We don't have to accept this world that we're literally drowning in. We can be pushed to have action, to hold those in power accountable and responsible. And when I'm thinking of In Inheritance of Drowning, I'm thinking of the racial, social, and political injustices. The power of poetry that we have is to push for that social transformation so that when we say, well, we have these natural disasters that's caused by global warming, people will say that's unacceptable to us. We're going to then move to activism. Now, activism can be different things. It could be actually on the streets. It could be calling Congress people, writing letters. It could also be where you decide to become a member of the political instrument itself. It could also mean going to grassroots, helping your community, but it does mean doing something, being active. It's not enough to say, well, we're just going to sit here and wait and keep inheriting this world where we're all drowning. The power of poetry is to get us to mobilize, is to get us to move, is to think, how is the world going to change unless we take action? How are we looking at poetry as an instrument of resistance? The time is now. When do we have to act? The time is now to act. So that's what I'm hoping poetry will get us to feel, to move, to remember we can make this change, but we have to act. And when do we have to act? Right now. I mean, we should have acted yesterday, of course, but when
Fair
people
enough.
think,
Yeah.
well, when should we act? And my students are sitting around, well, when should we act? Now. What are you waiting for? Now. Don't wait.
Wow.
Don't wait
Yeah.
for somebody to tell you, oh, tomorrow or next week. Now. Do something now. Right this moment now. Well,
I'm
what can
so
we do?
happy that
Anything.
I record this so I can, because there was so many things going on in your answer, and I'm just, I
Oh, I
mean, that
hope
was
so.
amazing. Yeah, that's
Well, thank
amazing.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So
Thank
with
you, Mila.
that, I invite you to read your poems.
Thank you, Mila. And thank you again, Lydia, for having me here. And again, I can't wait for Nancy to read. I'm going to start by reading the first poem, which is the poem that opens the book in Inheritance of Drowning. And this is the poem called What the Poet is Supposed to Write About a Hurricane. What the poet is supposed to write about a hurricane should be skylights of horror, not skit rocks of beauty in walls of wind, affixed to the puzzle pieces of the vortex eye, spinning like a lost continent soul. How the lively whips should stun the mouths of gravity, hissing without hesitation, engulfing the stench of uprooted dirt and grass. The poet is supposed to decode the stanzas, shudder the name Maria into frail syllables, to wish a hurricane a fast and gritty death, not stay its stubborn slow dances, held intoxicating possibilities and mysteries. The next poem I'm going to read is called The Bee. And this one really looks at how the environment just doesn't affect humans or animals. It also affects insects. We depend upon bees in so many ways. This poem reminds us of our interconnection with that world. The bee. After Hurricane Maria, you spin in a daze, punch drunk from the fetid fumes of the generator, but you have made a decision to eat, live. You leap onto a tan dark bra that is widely flapping on the clothesline, eager to gather something sweet and bring it to the surface. And yet there is nothing there but a bare circle of cotton. You wonder how the hurricane galloped away with the flowers, triggering a vanishing act. Well, where is the magician's wand to bring back the canopy of blossoms? It must be in the wind of loss, along with the why and because. There is no way to tell you about the aftermath slow cruelty. It is a tale that claws, cell by cell, leaving wings to litter this earth. The next one I'll read is called the Q&A section. And this poem looks at the emotional trauma that many survivors endure after experiencing a natural disaster. The Q&A section. If you ask me why I left Puerto Rico, I would tell you that it wasn't because Hurricane Maria left me with a bloated album of waiting for the blackouts to skip between the trees. It wasn't because the roofs unfurled and the doors retreated to hollows somewhere in the sky. It wasn't because of the shelves of water, inching like new constellations across an endless night. It was the full circle of fear, the kind that stays in my mouth like neon jawbreakers, refusing to surrender, tailor-made to dislocate words that I long to speak. I dread colliding against this familiar when the memory gathers like burning hands around your throat. The next one that I'll read is called Becoming American. And this is what happens when you are forced to assimilate into a culture. For many that left Puerto Rico, when they get to the United States, even though Puerto Rico is part of the United States, they're told, don't speak Spanish here. Uh, Focus on the American flag, not the Puerto Rican flag. And so this is a poem about what it means to become an American. Becoming American. We are first to cover our hearts with our hands, sing My Country 'Tis of Thee, and wear La Americana flag shorts. We swap Medalla for Budweiser, go to Shoney's and eat the all-you-can-eat breakfast. No one cares if we waste food, as long as we leave a decent tip and speak quietly. Leave La Isla's conversaciones at the kitchen table. We are encouraged to buy the biggest trucks and waste gas. Take over the road and parking spaces. People make way when they see us. What kind of horsepower do you get? They admire strength. We are told not to ask those back home to send us pique and cafe. We should tamper our tongues and get the mild options. We go to Starbucks and get wild concoctions like unicorn berry frappuccino. Everything tastes too sweet. But this, they say, is the American way. Sugar, sugar, more sugar. Our coworkers go ahead and call us JL and AE because they butcher our real names. Jose, Luis, and Apaguito, Efraín. Everyone goes by some initials anyway, they claim. Look at JFK and MLK. Juanito is Buddy. Everyone here gets a nickname too. We are forgetting the cuentos about the iguana thief. Now is blah, blah, blah about parking as wide as bedrooms. Rows and rows of different types of water in stores. Community meetings with 5 different types of cake and strawberry swirl ice cream. Everything is so sweet, but they give us plates swathed in foil. It is the American way. Some signs say English only, no Spanish allowed. There is the look to keep our rolling R's to ourselves. Pronounce rice so that it doesn't sound like fries. Remember, it's soup or salad, not soup or salad. And delete the word focus from our vocabulary. It always sounds like fuck us. The waiter smiles when we leave a nice tip because tipping is the American way. Please come again, take some mints. Here are the toothpicks. Goodies on the way out. How nice, how American. The junk mail is bigger and brighter. The flyer from the newspaper dentist pops orange and chili paper font with promises to make teeth white, white, white. The flyer comes with a coupon, a special, something on sale. How can it be any more American than that? Thank you. The next one that I'll read is called Ghost Talker Poem. And this is for all the missing BIPOC women out there that do not get the national attention that they deserve. Ghost Talker Poem. And for the Black girls that go missing from newspaper headlines and Spotlight 5 p.m. news, what happened to them? Kick the can over. See if the bones glint in the slips of sunshine. Press your ears against the grass. Listen to what bleeds. My mother in her lovely tongue. Those girls are probably with friends, hanging out in the basement, wearing cigarette pants. Cigarette pants were fashionable once. They will turn up like loose change sidelined under sofa cushions. Overdue books sandwiched in sweaters. Favorite hairpins gagged by vents. Don't fret. Fret is a funny word for a young child. Sounds like forget. Don't forget, I won't. about the missing Black girls, probably already dead in a ditch or a field somewhere. I'm not supposed to think about death. Passing away, kicked the bucket 6 feet under, meeting our maker, which is what my teacher said. The class guinea pig had stopped moving. Mrs. Hayes poked its feet and then shoved it into a shoebox, said that we could bury it across from the tire swing in the back of the schoolyard. The dirt was ordinary, brown, hard. Eat your snacks, said my mother. Twinkies from 7-Eleven, maybe Wawa. Nothing from Superfresh or Pathmark. White filling, creamy like white fungus, oozing like zit pus, besmirching golden cake. The news says nothing about Black girls that go missing, not even a speck in someone's unread newspaper. Silence is when we inherit ghosts. I see them taking victory laps every night. Thank you. And the last poem I will read for today is called G is for Greenhood. This is my attempt at a happy poem. For those wondering, okay, where's the happiness? Okay, this is the happy poem. And I feel that way because especially living in Puerto Rico, when I go outside and I see the trees and I'm surrounded by this world of green, I do feel a sense of peace, even though we have so much chaos, going on around us. So this poem is called G is for Greenhood. G is for greenhood, for spring sitting on my shoulders, then fastening to eye level, chantus, gladiola spinning, bowing in the distance, green of green, greening until earth gets it right, green that I can't keep to myself. Say, green, belongs within reach, like an abstract of sepal outside of the flower body. You wouldn't recognize me when I cradle green, for fear of it becoming worn in many places. Even when the morning lurks upside down, green, not this green, never hurts. Ask the turacos giving off green among drizzled leaves. Ask the grasshoppers that throw themselves against grass because it glistens. Ask wet green in my blood that hasn't forgotten, spared green across homeland where your green overlaps with mine. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much.